So, in respect of everybody's time, I would like to introduce Paul Ruppert, who is the Senior Commercial Development Manager at Charles County Economic Development. He is our go-to guy for all things opportunity zones. So, I'm going to let him take it away from here.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Really appreciate the opportunity to share this information with everyone. It's an exciting opportunity for us here in Southern Maryland. It's another federal program that can help with funding for projects, both real estate projects, but also there are other projects that qualify or could potentially qualify for opportunity zone investment. So I thought I would run through, let's see. My arrows are not working, so let me see here. Bear with me just a minute. Sorry, let me try this again.
There you go.
Okay. I'm not sure why it won't advance. Was working before. There we go. Okay, we can do it that way. Great. Okay, can you see that second screen, which has the topic, what is an opportunity zone at the top?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, super. All right. So the Opportunity Zone is a federal program. It was initially created 10 years ago through federal legislation, and they recently reauthorized it last year, and they made it permanent. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through what opportunity zones are and how they connect specifically to Southern Maryland and the opportunities that we might have here for investors, developers, business owners to take advantage of this project, of this program. So these are tax incentives, and they are meant to encourage private investment in projects that qualify. And so it's not funded through federal money or state money or local money. It's really a tax incentive that's meant to encourage the private investment into areas that have been under-resourced. And it's connected to capital gains. So it's really about how does an investor who has capital gains, significant capital gains through the sale of either real estate property or stocks or cryptocurrency or some other investment, when they have capital gains, they can take advantage of an investment through a qualified opportunity zone project, and they can reduce the amount of capital gains they will have to pay. You can see here, so that it really connects to a wide range of things from commercial, industrial, mixed use, housing, business development, also businesses. So there's lots of opportunities here. And that last point is the goals for the program are to stimulate economic growth, encourage redevelopment, and create jobs in underserved communities. So there's some changes between the first iteration, which was approved by Congress back in 2017, to this new round, which was approved in 2025 and is going into effect on January 1st of next year, 2027. So I'll just run through these real quick. So originally it was a temporary program. It was set to sunset at the end of this year, and the new legislation from last year made it permanent and made it a recurring 10-year redesignation cycle. And so we are in the process right now over these next few months of getting our census tracts that are eligible to be designated in a second round of designation. And so there's some very specific benefits, but and some kind of tightening of the rules. So one of the things that they did in the new legislation is they tightened the rules. Originally, it was broader eligibility where median family income, and again, it's targeted to census tracts that meet these requirements. And so originally, the original legislation had it at 80% of median family income. And so they've reduced it to census tracts that are at 70% or below of median family income for the region or the state. And so it's made it tighter, made it more focused. They've also increased the rural incentives. And for us here in Southern Maryland, for the purposes of this program, all three of our counties, Charles, Calvert, and St. Mary's, are considered rural. So any census tract that will be included in this program will be able to take advantage of these increased benefits for rural incentives. Go on to the next slide. So this is a slide which shows the 10 tracts that are eligible in Southern Maryland. So there's a two-step process. So through the legislation, it dictates which census tracts are eligible across the country. And then there's a process where the governor of each state, or in the case of District of Columbia, it's the mayor, they choose which ones of the eligible census tracts will actually be designated. And they're restricted to only being 25% of the eligible census tracts can be designated. So here in Maryland, we have 452 eligible census tracts, but Governor Moore can only dictate 113 of those census tracts which will be eligible. So that's why we're going through this process where each county is designating a person to be responsible to put forward to the governor which tracts they think should be included in the program, which tracts are prioritized. And so again, there's one tract in Calvert County, 4 tracts in St. Mary's County. You can see that the southern part of St. Mary's County actually has 3 tracts in that one piece. And then we have 5 tracts in Charles County, 3 in Waldorf, the 1 in Indian Head and Nanjemoy, and then 1 in the Newburgh, Swan Point, Cobb Island area. This slide shows kind of the difference between the original designations and the possibilities for new designations. So this is Charles County specific, and this shows the areas with the lines. Those are the ones that were designated as part of the original program. So there were 2 census tracts in Waldorf and 1 in the town of Indian Head. And then you can see there's overlap here, right? And it's similar in the other 2 counties. Again, there's a process that we're going through right now where we're making recommendations to the governor. He then needs to make that recommendation to the federal government, and then the new program starts on January 1st. I thought I would quickly run through the different census tracts here in Charles County to show you kind of what we're doing internally as we analyze the opportunities and which census tracts might make good candidate for designation by the governor. So this is the first census tract that we're looking at in Charles County. It's in Waldorf. It has a population of 5,800 people, has a poverty rate of 11%. And you can see that median family income is at 61% of the regional median family income. And so it falls underneath that 70% threshold, and that's why it is eligible. This area is at the northern end of the county. It includes a piece of 301. It includes Old Washington. It includes a piece of Route 5. It's where we currently have an opportunity zone. And so if they were to redesignate this area, then it would continue. And so a lot of the thing that's important for us in Charles County is this is the proposed track for the SMRT, the Southern Maryland Rapid Transit Corridor, going along Old Washington. And so this is an area that we think will see significant investment over the next 10 years. And that is part of our argument, and really everyone's argument to the governor is saying, which census tracts do we think will have significant investment over this next decade and can benefit from Opportunity Zone funding? The second census tract is just south of that, also in Waldorf. Again, Route 301 is to the west of this census tract. Old Washington goes right down. So again, the SMRT continues in this area. There's a lot of commercial property in this area that has been developed over the last 50, 80, 100 years. And a lot of that, there's opportunity for redevelopment. So again, we look at what opportunities could there be for changes in Waldorf, changes in Charles County, and how can we use this to attract additional investment? So again, you can see that median family income is at 54% as compared to the region, and so it falls underneath that threshold. And so the goal here is to push funding, private investment, to areas that have, over the past several decades, have been under-resourced, underfunded in real estate development. Census tract number 3 is a third tract in Waldorf. This one, again, 61% median family income. There's less commercial property here. There's a lot of single-family homes and townhomes in this area. So less of a kind of a strong candidate. Still, we're going to put it forward. Our approach is we are putting forward all 5 of our census tracts in Charles County and we are prioritizing. And so this one is important for us for the continued development of Waldorf, but perhaps it's not as strong a candidate. Census tract number 4 is Indian Head and Nanjemoy. This census tract is a little different from the one that's currently in the program, and it covers the naval base and a section of Nanjemoy south of the naval base. It also includes a small piece of the town, but that piece doesn't have any commercial activity. That's where the village green is. That's where the elementary school is. That's where the post office is. So there's a little commercial activity there. That's where the senior center is. So again, it's predominantly federally owned through the Navy base and south of that. And so while it's important for us to fund projects in this area as it is throughout the county, again, the question is this a strong candidate? We will put it forward as a strong candidate, but there's a question that the governor will make. He will be weighing each of our census tracts against other census tracts across the state. And then the 5th tract is in Newburgh, Morgantown. So it's all the way in the southern part of the county. We believe this is a strong candidate for inclusion. It includes the power plant at Morgantown, but it also includes Swan Point, Cobb Island, and a number of smaller commercial areas throughout that census tract that we really see as an opportunity for targeted waterfront investment. We think there's opportunity for tourism investment, recreational investment, really being a boost to the southern Charles County economy. And of course, it's also a possibility that there could be Opportunity Zone funding that goes into the redevelopment of the power plant at Morgantown. So we're in a multi-month process where we're looking at what are we recommending to the government. And so in Charles County, we're in the middle of that process. We've appeared in front of the Board of County Commissioners. We've submitted to them our recommendations. They have in turn then created a letter that they are submitting as part of our package to the state that recommends all 5 of the census tracts as being included in the program, but prioritizes them by identifying the 2 in Waldorf and the 1 in southern Charles County as the 2 that make the most sense if we're only able to get 3, or if we're only able to get less than 5, then these are the 3 that the board would like to see. And so I'm taking those recommendations, and I'm doing, as the representative for Charles County, I'll be doing the formal submission to the state through Department of Housing and Community Development. So there's a portal that they've set up for each of the counties to submit. their recommendations for their county. And so we will be putting together our submission and submitting that. The deadline to do that is by August 7th. That then goes through DHCD. They review all of it, and then they send it up to the governor's office. The governor has a deadline of October 1st for when he needs to notify the federal government through the Department of Treasury, the Treasury Department, which of the 452 census tracts in the state of Maryland. So he gets to nominate 113. So which 113 he has selected, that goes to the federal, to Treasury. They then formalize that so that by January 1st, it goes into effect. I put up here a link, and Kelly's going to share this slideshow later so that you have this information. On the right-hand side of the slide, we can see that these are the representatives for each of the 3 counties. So Calvert County is Jacqueline Culver in their Department of Community Resources, and that's Jacqueline's email address there. There's my email address for Charles County, and then Kelly Hinkle in their Economic Development Department. That's her email address. On the state side with DHCD, they've hired a new person to run this program, and his name is Bert Bossar, and that's his email address there. And then I put in here a couple online resources. So there's a state website that talks about this program, and then there's actually quite a few private websites and programs that various entities, organizations have put forward. And a real strong one is this Economic Innovation Group. They're a nonprofit organization. They're based in Washington, D.C. They were started about 12 years ago, and they were really part of the impetus behind the first designation of opportunity zones. And so they, along with stakeholders in Congress, kind of created this program and really pushed for the approval of it through Congress, and then the reauthorization that happened last year and made the program permanent. And so that's just our closing slide. Again, presentation of the Charles County Economic Development Department. So very happy to answer any questions that anyone might have. I'm going to stop sharing so that we can have a conversation. So Kelly, I don't know how you want to do the questions. I'm opening the chat now. So I don't know.
I did put my email in the chat for anybody who's interested in the slides. Please send me an email so I can get them to you. I know some of you were on our commercial committee, but some of you are not. So please just email me. Let me know. Paul has been generous with sharing. And then Paul, if you're okay, we can also share the recording of this too for people who may not have been able to
Sure,
attend.
very happy to.
Okay, wonderful. We'll probably do that too.
Okay, great.
So open Q&A for anybody who might have questions. I see Lily with a hand up.
Good morning. Thank you for your presentation. I wanted to ask about Calvert County. You indicated one, and I know you're not from Calvert County, but I thought 231 had an opportunity zone.
So I don't know. So I can certainly do the research on that and get back to you if you want to put your email in there. And again, since I'm not intimately familiar with Calvert County, but I can definitely figure out if there's more than one zone and can share that with you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And the link that I included on that second to last slide, which is to the Maryland Department of Housing Community Development page for opportunity zones, that includes a statewide map, and you can go to that statewide map.
I was going to say I can probably look it up.
And that's where you can find it. So I think there's only one in Calvert, but I certainly could be mistaken.
Okay, no problem. Thanks.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Paul, I'm just trying to make sure I understand this correctly. So if a business qualifies, they get some kind of incentives for operating their business in these zones, similar like to the hub zone for the federal government or with federal contracting?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different. So it's not an incentive for a business to operate. It's really for investing in a business. And so that business could be what it's mostly been used for is real estate development. And so we have two big projects in Charles County that utilize funding as part of the first program. The the first development is a multifamily. It's an apartment complex that was built by MCB all the way at the northern part of our county in the Waldorf Station development. It's called Ironwoods, and that's a several hundred unit apartment building that came online just in the last year. And so MCB utilized this funding. So they went out to investors who had capital gains in some other kind of sale, if they sold stock or if they sold a business or they sold something else where they had capital gains, that investor has a choice. Or before opportunity zones, they did not have a choice. They just had to pay their taxes on that capital gains the next April 15th when they filed their taxes, right? Well, this program says you have a choice. You can either, yes, you can still do that. You can still pay the taxes on any capital gains that you have from an investment, or you can find a qualified investment in one of these census tracts to then reduce the amount of capital gains that you will have to pay. So that's the crux of this project. There's a second project in Charles County, another on Western Parkway, which is another multifamily project, 200 and some apartments. And again, that developer, when they were doing their capital stack for their project, they knew that their project was located in a designated census tract, an opportunity zone census tract. So they were able to say to their potential investors, if you would like to invest your capital gains into our project, then here are our parameters, right? So it's just a straightforward investment. And by the way, by investing with us, you personally benefit through a reduction in the taxes that you have to pay through capital gains by taking advantage of this program. And so it's an investment in a qualified project inside of a designated census tract. What it's mostly been used for is multifamily housing, but it doesn't have to be used for that. It can be used for all sorts of real estate development, but it can also be used for investing in businesses. So if you have, for instance, a business that's located in a census tract, and that business, say that owner wants to retire and wants to sell their business, they could sell it to an investor who's trying to, again, who has these capital gains and wants to take advantage of this tax incentive. So let's call that John Doe or Jane Doe who has this money to invest. He or she could purchase a business, an ongoing business that exists in a designated zone, and they would have a reduction in the capital gains tax that they would have to pay. Does that answer your question? It's certainly a complicated program.
Hi, Paul. I have a question for you. This is Leona Charles. Do you know what, and you may not know this, but just off the top of your head, do you know what the percentage of tax reduction applies for the investment?
Yes. So there's a couple things. So number one, there's a delay in having to pay the taxes. So if you invest into a qualified project, you don't have to pay your taxes on that April 15th. You delay paying those taxes for 5 years. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, after that 5 years, if you maintain that investment, then you're reducing your capital gains taxes by 10% in a regular zone, or what makes us lucky down in our counties for this rural zone, it's reduction of 30%. So let's say you have a capital gains tax bill of $100,000 that's due on April 15th. If you invest money and it's qualified and it meets these parameters, you don't have to pay that $100,000 for another 5 years. That's number one. And after that 5 years, you don't have to pay the full $100,000. If it's in a rural zone, you only have to pay $70,000. If it's in a regular zone, so for instance, up in Baltimore City, that's not a rural zone, then you would be paying $90,000 instead of $100,000. And then the last big piece of this is that any profit, any capital gains on this on the investment, that on the new investment, all of that profit, when you sell it, if you sell it after 10 years, then any new capital gains that in a normal regime you would have to pay taxes on that, you pay zero taxes on that. So let's take our example of the person who invests in a new project and that's qualified, and they hold that investment for 10 years. Their new gains on that new investment is subject to zero capital gains.
Thank
So
you.
they still pay the tax on the original capital gains, right? At a reduced rate, but if they hold it for 10 years, then they get basically 0% tax, capital gain tax on their new investment.
Awesome. All right.
And so
Thank
that's
you.
why this works well for multifamily. So those are projects that a developer or investors would hold for 10 years, right?
Right.
Take advantage of this reduction in capital gains, and then potentially sell it at that point, or they can continue to hold it. But that's the opportunity.
Okay. Right. Got it. Thank you.
Yep. And again, I'm happy to have a conversation. I know this is a complex thing. I'm happy at any time to have a phone call. If you want to send me an email and we can set up a phone call, that's part of my job, is to talk with folks, and I can talk with folks. Obviously, in Charles County, I'm happy to talk with folks who are active in the other counties as well. So always happy to do that after the 4th of July, if that's of interest. What other questions do we have?
Where's my hand?
Maria, is your hand up?
I'm so sorry. I couldn't get my mute button to cooperate. I may have missed this. You may have said it, but I'm trying to see what the timeline is. Based on your schedule, when will you know if your request for the new opportunity zones will be approved? Or since the current program ends at the end of the year, does it make sense to do transactions now or wait for the new opportunity to come through? Over.
Okay, so two parts to that answer. So the first is we will know, I'm assuming at some point in October, what the new zones would be. I'm assuming that when the governor sends in his list to Treasury, to the Federal Department of Treasury, at that point he will make that list public. So that's not guaranteed, but that's my assumption, and I can find out for you and share that information. I can talk to the folks who are kind of running this program at DHCD. So that's the answer to that, number one. The answer to your second question is that the current program, so what we call Opportunity Zones 1.0, that actually stays in effect for another 2 years. So you could actually utilize that in projects in the current set of zones. So for instance, in Charles County, we have 3 census tracts that are eligible. So in theory, next year, if you had a project that would still qualify under the first iteration, 1.0, however, some of the benefits were time related when they did their legislation originally. And so some of the benefits have fallen off. So there's still some benefits to doing this, specifically that last one, which is the no capital gains on new profits as you move forward. But there's no longer a deferral of capital gains, for instance, in the current 1.0. So you would have to pay, so say you sold something today and your taxes theoretically are due on April 15th, then you wouldn't be able to defer those taxes. You would still have to pay them on April 15th. What other questions are there?
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Wait, I have one. I
Yes.
have one.
Sure.
Hi. Paul, as an individual investor that would be, can the proceeds from that was originally planned to be part of a like-kind exchange be invested into this and still benefit from the incentives? So as an individual property owner.
Yep. So I'm not an expert in 1031 like-kind exchanges. So I suspect there's you can't double dip, but I haven't looked into that, but I should, and I'll make a note to look into that. And so the idea with that is that you're kind of continuously deferring your capital gains until
you die.
Right. You said it, not me.
I'm all right with that.
and so there's no capital gains due. Now, if you were to want to switch out of that, then there's, again, I'm not an expert, nor am I a lawyer or any of those things, right? But it seems to me you could sell a property that has gone through a kind of a train of these 1031 exchanges. It seems to me that you could sell that property, and instead of electing to buy another property and have it qualify as a 1031, you could then take your capital gains and invest it into this kind of investment. So that would be my understanding. Again, that's unofficial, non-legal advice to you. It's not advice, not even advice.
It's interesting too, because too many of these, especially just tax preparers, but there's going to be a lot of people that have no factual and professional opinion or advice to give on this until it's clearly laid out. So thank you, though.
You're welcome. And there are a number of people now. We can't recommend people to folks for them to hire or anything like that. But there are a number of people who developed expertise over the 1.0, and now that the 2.0 has become permanent, will continue to develop that expertise. So there are a number of people out there, both accountants, attorneys, real estate developers. So there's a fair number of them. And so, for instance, the two projects that happened with us here in Charles County, those developers are considering new investments both here in Charles County and in other places in Maryland that would take advantage of this program because it was a good benefit for them.
Good deal. Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Sure thing. Other questions? For those of you who like podcasts, there is a Opportunity Zones podcast. I think it might even be opportunityzones.com. And again, it's a private individual that started the podcast a number of years ago. He's written a book that I've ordered. I haven't received it yet. So on this Opportunity Zones 2.0. And so that's another resource for folks who either like to consume information through podcasts or like to consume information through reading a book. Those are two options. So I think it's opportunityzones.com is the website. But if you Google podcast Opportunity Zones, and actually I'll pull it up on my phone maybe. Let's see if I can find it real quickly. What other? I see there was a question. So my understanding is 1031 exchange defers taxes, Opportunity Zones forgive taxes. I'm not an attorney. So there's so I think, Lily, there's some truth in there. And again, I'm not an official attorney or accountant, so I think that's definitely a question for your accountant. So let me just, while we're waiting to see if there are any other calls, okay. So the name of the podcast, it's called the Opportunity Zones Podcast, and the host is Jimmy Atkinson. And again, I'm not saying he says everything right or doesn't say anything right, so I'm not endorsing him, but I've been listening to him and I found some of the information that he shared to be valuable.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Kelly, what other questions do we have?
I don't see any. I was getting that a link for that podcast possibly
Okay, great.
to
So
put
one of
in
the
the
things,
group.
and again, happy to continue on answering questions. One of the things I think that might be an interesting, um, I'm using the word opportunity too much, but opportunity for us in this kind of world is something I touched on earlier, which is about the sale of businesses. And we have, the silver tsunami, folks who are retiring, who, may not have a younger generation to pass their business on to. And I think there's an opportunity here for businesses that are located in these designated zones to be purchased by new people using funding from opportunity zoned investors. So I think that there's a real chance here. I don't think a lot of that has happened. So another part of the new rules that were included in the new legislation is that there has to be more reporting to the Department of Treasury so that they know who is taking advantage of these of the opportunity zone tax incentives. Because when they first did the legislation, there was no reporting requirement. You had to report it on your tax returns. So that was the only way that you reported it. And so the federal government had no way of kind of tracking how many projects have taken advantage of this funding and how much money has gone into the funding. Now, other people, including that EIG group who I put that link on, they've done kind of their own research where they've determined that several $100 billion have gone through this program. But what the new legislation has said is that if you participate, there's a more formal reporting requirement that we require everyone to tell us how much how much is being invested so that we can track this more accurately. Is there a current list of owners who may be interested in this? That like business owners, you mean, or? Okay, so that again is not something that is central to my work. So I'm not aware of who the business brokers might be in Southern Maryland. So that I think is a step would be if perhaps there's someone on this call, but it's connecting with folks who have expertise in brokering the sale of businesses. That's where I would start if I were trying to investigate this as a possibility.
I have another question, if I may.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So as I think about this in the long term and in the big picture, is this a tax incentive and encouragement for corporate ownership versus individual ownership, though, of properties?
So it's open to both. Both corporate entities and individuals can take advantage of this. So it's as I understand it, it's meant to be agnostic. So it really was the Trump administration, and it was passed bipartisan, but it was in the first Trump administration. Is really the idea was how do we get more private investment into neighborhoods and communities that have lower income levels and because of that or connected to that have seen less investment over the past 10, 20, 50, 100 years. So it really was an attempt by the federal government and leaders to say, how can we encourage people by giving them this tax break to invest their money and not have it be federal money or state money or local money. So as far as whether it's a corporate entity of some kind or an individual, it's open to both. There is a level of hoops to jump through. So there's a level of sophistication that's required to fully understand and fully qualify for the program. And so Joe Blow kind of low level investor may or may not have a full understanding of the program, be able to take advantage of it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. It sounds well, yes. Thank you.
Yes. I mean, to me, the advice is to, if you or anyone you're interested in is interested in this, is to find qualified counsel, an attorney, an accountant, someone like that who can give you the advice. So I can provide the information, and folks like us can provide information, and we can guide you through, and we can find out more information, because our job in economic development is to drive investment to our counties so that we boost our tax rolls, so that we have more money coming in, so that we can pay for the things that we want, including schools, recreational opportunities, roads, all those various things that governments pay for. So my job with the Charles County Economic Development Department is to try to attract investment to the county. And so that's why I'm excited about this opportunity, where as I become more and more knowledgeable about it, I can then now go out to potential investors or developers and say, hey, the development that you're considering in this neighborhood is in a census tract that qualifies under this program. Have you considered soliciting from other people private investment that would qualify for their tax incentive, right? So that's the whole idea. And so for me to talk to commercial brokers, it's, hey, as you're working for with investors who are looking to do development, if it's located in this neighborhood, you should, or you could consider this program as a way of helping the capital stack.
No, I get that. I mean, I appreciate the opportunity. It may not be for me, but I appreciate the opportunity.
Yep. Is there a particular type of business that has priority within these zones? Youth center, for example, does that not come into the equation? So that doesn't come into the equation. I think that, I'd have to think a little bit about that. I guess when I see youth center, part of my question is that a for-profit or nonprofit entity? And so there may be some questions there about whether a nonprofit entity could take advantage of the capital gains tax incentives, whether that makes sense. And I haven't thought that through. And again, I'm not an expert in it, so I guess that would be the thing that jumps out to me. But no, there's no priority as far as the type of the businesses. So if it was a for-profit youth center, that's the same as a car mechanic or a multifamily development. It all could qualify. Now, because there are hoops to jump through, there's probably a level of investment that makes sense. So it probably doesn't make sense at a $10,000 level, but maybe it does at an X, right? 100,000, the million. There's some level where it makes sense to pay the attorneys, pay the accountants to make sure all the paperwork is straight. And so, again, if it's a small project, that might not make sense, but if it does at a certain level.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yep. So does this work if you plan to upgrade a property in an opportunity zone? So there's a little fuzziness on this, whether a current owner could take advantage of this. A current owner of a property could take advantage of this. As I understand it, it's not intended for that use case. So it's intended for a new owner of some kind with new investment to be qualified. So that's my reading of it. Again, I'll do some more reading on that and try to find that out for you. But that's my understanding. It's not so much for, I'm Paul Ruppert, I own a building currently and I've owned it for 10 years and I'm going to take capital gains from some other place and do an improvement. So, but again, don't quote me on that, but I don't think that that's correct.
Paul, let me ask you, is the sole purpose of this program all about capital gains? There's not any aspect of it where they give you funding or grants or anything like that?
That's correct. So it's all based on the capital gains of either an individual or some kind of a corporate entity. taking those capital gains that you generate through a sale of some other product, right? So whether you're selling stock or selling real estate, taking that capital gains and reinvesting it in one of our neighborhoods that are underserved, under-resourced, right? And so it's all meant to be privately funded. So there's no federal funding, there's no local funding, there's no grants, there's nothing like that to go along with it. It's really just an ability to pay less tax at the end of the day. And it's a federal program, so if there's any capital gains tax due at a state or local level, it doesn't affect those taxes either. So it just affects the federal capital gains that you have. So if anything that you do is subject to either state or local capital gains tax, this federal program wouldn't connect to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Jamie, you can ask your question if you're ready. Yeah, I'm on mute too. You're on mute.
Shoot, darn it. What we saw with the first opportunity zone designations is that the state did come, once they were designated, the state did come with some programs, some grant programs for opportunity zones. So even though there might not currently be some additional incentives, there may be down the line after those designations are made. So it's just something to keep in mind as to, when you're making your case, where might that be of value as well in the future?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yep. Thank you, Jamie. Right. I do know that the governor and Secretary Day at DHCD are prioritizing these investments in neighborhoods and communities. And so I think that we can see, while it is a constrained time at the state level for their budget, I know that that this is an important priority for them. What other questions are there?
We still got a few more minutes. Anybody have anything?
Unfortunately, I had to jump on late, Paul, but will you share the recording with us?
Yeah, so Kelly's gonna
you.
share it. I think she wants you to put your email, Jamie, in the
I already
thread.
found it. I found her
Okay.
online.
Thank you.
I was gonna send it to her anyway because I knew she came in late.
So Jamie is a colleague from the Eastern Shore, so thank you for joining us. And again, so one of the things that I've been doing is I've been sharing resources with other folks, because on the one hand, there's this competitive piece, right, where Charles County, if we might lose out, but then there's this other piece, which is we want to lift all boats here in Maryland. And so I'm very glad and happy to share information with other counties. I want to see us all to thrive and take advantage of these federal and really every program that's out there. So in this case, a federal program.
Oh, here I am. Okay.
I'm going to type my cell phone number into the my email address and my cell phone number into the chat. So if anyone wants to reach out directly, they are my email address is in the presentation, but you can also take it down here. And I'm also happy to chat about other things as it relates to economic development in Charles County. So maybe I'll just take a minute, Kelly, if it's okay, just to say a little bit about the Economic Development Department. So
Sure.
we are a county department. There are about a dozen, 12 or 13 of us in the department. And really our goal is to support existing businesses and to work to attract new businesses to the county. We also manage the programs like DBE and those kinds of programs as well through our department. And then we have a kind of a marketing arm as well that helps celebrate and promote the businesses and the business community here in Charles County. I'm on the commercial team, and I was brought on about a year ago to focus primarily, but not exclusively, on the western side of the county. So where we have this newly designated technology corridor, which is really in its infancy, that runs from Indian Head to Bryant Road and to the Maryland Airport, which is our privately owned airport there in Indian Head. And so my task is to work closely with the folks on the Navy base at Indian Head, with the folks in the town of Indian Head, and people at Bryant Road and the new owners of the airport to really bring up opportunities that are going on the western side of the county. So if there's anything that I can help you with that's separate from opportunity zones, feel free to reach out to me about that as well. And if I can't, if I don't have the answer, but someone else in our department does, I'm happy to send you that way.
I have sent the PowerPoint slides to anybody so far that has requested it, so please check your emails. Let me know if you didn't get it. I'm happy to send those. And then once the recording is concluded, I'll just send it to everybody who's requested it, because that'll probably be a pretty large file. So, any other questions, guys?
Thank you very much. It was very informative.
You're welcome. Very happy to be here. Happy to share the news about this.
We love to have Paul on our commercial committee participating because we learn a lot. So it's nice.
Yeah, it's great.
Thanks for your time, Paul.
All right. Thank you very much.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Kelly.
guys.
Sell a
Bye,
house.
everybody.
Stay cool out there.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Okay. You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. All right, Kelly. Anything else you need from me?
Nope, I'm just going back through the chat to make sure I got everybody, but nope,
Okay.
thank you so much again, once again.
Yeah. Great. Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Have a good holiday weekend.
Okay. You too. All right. Bye.
Bye.